Hey class, welcome back to day 2 of factoring trinomials. All right, for those of you who had completed the homework, please be sure to check my comments on there because I made some comments on your homework assignment on the questions that you got wrong. All right, so we're going to continue on factoring trinomials. All right, but you're going to notice a slight difference in these problems today. All right. And you can see from the little smiley face, don't worry, be happy, all right? So what if the signs are not all positive, all right? And sometimes our trinomials are not going to be all positive, right? So yesterday's problems, the trinomials were all positives. Today, we're going to have some negatives and positives mixed together. All right, so we have x squared minus 4x minus 12. Well, guess what? We're going to start the same way, right? We're going to find the factors of my last term, right? Factors of negative 12 this time that add up to a negative 4. Want to use the blue there. All right, so now we're finding factors of our last term, negative 12, that add up to a negative 4. Okay, so again, we're going to use this factors chart here, right? We want to find factors of negative 12 this time. Well, guess what? The factors of negative 12 are going to be the same thing as the factors of positive 12, except one of my numbers is going to be negative. All right, and don't forget to always reference this factors chart here to help out when we're figuring out our factors of a number. All right, you can find this factors chart in the week 2 folder of Schoology here. All right, so again, if you didn't print out yesterday, I would have this document printed out, or you have access to this document. Okay. All right, so we're going to list out the factors of 12 or of negative 12, right? So that means we have 1 and 12, we have 2 and 6, and we have 3 and 4. All right, except one of these numbers in each pair is going to be negative. All right, so to figure out which one is going to be negative, right, we have to ask ourselves, well, what do these numbers have to add up for? What am I looking for? Right, I'm looking for them to add up to a negative 4. All right, so if I have a 1 and a 12, well, I can't get a negative 4 with a 1 and a 12. All right, what if I had a 2 and a 6? Oh, a 2 and a 6, I think I can get a negative 4, right? So if I have a 2 and a negative 6, right? If this 6 was negative and I add 2 to it, I'm going to get myself a negative 4. So that is the pair that I'm going to use, but I have to make that 6 negative in order to add up to a negative 4, all right? So you'll definitely need a calculator today, right? And especially dealing with these negatives here, all right? So make sure that you get a calculator out as well when you're doing these notes and when you're doing the homework, okay? So now that I found my factors here and I figured out which one was negative and which one was positive, now I'm ready to write in my solution. Again, my solution will always be 2 binomials, all right? And it'll always be x and x for these types of trinomials, all right? Except now, right, one of these is going to be positive and one of these is going to be negative, all right? So this 2 is positive, so I'm going to have an x plus 2 times an x minus 6. All right, so now the signs are important and the order matters, right? This x plus 2 could be in the second set of parentheses. That part doesn't matter, but my positive number has to be the 2 and my negative number has to be the 6. All right, because that is the only way it will FOIL back out to get to my original expression here, my original polynomial. All right, so these steps are the same exact steps from yesterday, right? We want to identify the b and c values in the trinomial of ax squared plus bx plus c when this a term is 1. All right. And then again, write down the factors that multiply to c, right? List out the factors that multiply to my last term and find the factored pair that adds to the middle term, all right? Except now my middle term, right, could be negative, it could be positive. My factors could be negative or could be positive. All right, so these are going to take a little more thinking here to figure these out. All right, take a little bit more time. All right, but again, you have the time, you have the resources, you have the tools, right? You have the calculator and you have your factor chart to use. All right, and always we're going to substitute that factored pair into 2 binomials, right? 2 sets of parentheses with an x and another x. All right, so let's do some example problems, all right? So I get example 1 here. We have x squared plus 3x minus 18. All right, so again, I'm finding factors of negative 18 that add to a positive 3. All right, so I'm going to start out the same way. I'm going to list out my factors of 18, right? We have 1 and 18. We have 2 times 9, and we have 3 times 6. All right, now that I have my 3 different pairs of factors, I have to figure out, well, one of these are going to be negative, right? And one is going to be positive, and the combination has to add up to a positive 3. Well, if I have a 1 and 18, there's no way I can get a positive 3, right? A 2 and a 9, I can't get to a positive 3. But with a 3 and a 6, I can get to a positive 3, right? And to get to a positive 3 by adding these two numbers up, that means my 3 has to be negative and my 6 needs to be positive, right? Because a negative 3 plus 6 equals a positive 3, and that is what I need. All right, so that means my solution now is right here. I have x minus 3 times x plus 6. Awesome. All right, number 2, example 2 here, we have x squared minus 9x plus 20. All right, again, we're going to use our factor chart here, right? We have factors of 20, a positive 20, but this time they need to add up to a negative 9. All right, and again, the only factors I can use to figure out this solution is just my factors of 20, right? So it has to be one of these combinations here, right? It has to be either 1 and 20, 2 times 10, or 4 and a 5. Right, so somehow, some way, with one of these 3 pairs, I have to add them up to get negative 9. Well, wait a second. How did 2 positive numbers add up to a negative? That's right. Both of these numbers will have to be a negative because a negative times another negative is a positive, and a negative plus a negative is a negative. Okay, that's how I'm going to do this. Okay, so a negative 1 plus a negative, nope, that's not going to give me a negative 9. A negative 2 plus a negative 12, nope, that's not going to give me a negative 9. That means a negative 4 with plus a negative 5 is equal to a negative 9. So those are my pairs that I need to use for my solution here. So that means it's going to be x minus 4 times x minus 5. And you can always tell if you're right if you wanted to go ahead and FOIL this back out. All right, x times x is x squared, x times negative 5 is negative 5x, negative 4 times x is negative 4x, negative 4 times a negative 5 is a positive 20, right? I can combine my like terms to get that negative 9x. Awesome. All right, let's do some more practice ones together. And then as soon as we finish up these examples here, you'll have to do some practice on your own, okay? All right, so 3 says we have x squared minus 9x plus 8. All right, so again, I got to find factors of a positive 8 that add to a negative 9, right? And I can only use factors of 8. That means I have 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Right? Those are my only factors. So somehow with these numbers, I got to get to a negative 9. Well, the only way that's going to be possible is if I have a negative 1 plus a negative 8, right? Both of these numbers need to be negative, and that kind of makes sense, right? A negative times a negative is a positive. And if I add both of those numbers up, I get my negative 9. All right, so those are my numbers I'm going to put into my solution here. So I get x minus 1 times x minus 8. Awesome. Let's try number 4 here. I got x squared minus 1x minus 12. All right, so now I got to find factors of negative 12 that add to a negative 1. Well, factors of negative 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4, right? And if I have to multiply to a negative, this time only one of these numbers are going to be negative, right? And let's see, and I got to add up to a negative 1 here. So 1 and 12, nope, I'm not going to be able to get to a 1 and 12. I won't be able to get to a negative 1 with a 1 and a 12, not with a 2 and a 6. So that means it's 3 and the 4. I have to add to a negative 1 And the only way these will add to a -1 is if my 3 is positive and my 4 is negative, because a positive 3 plus a -4 is a -1. So that means my solution is going to be x plus 3 times x minus 4. All right, let's go. We got 2 more to do here. We can do this. All right, number 5, x squared plus 14x minus 32. All right, so I can find factors of -32 that add to a positive 14. All right, and be sure you look for those negative signs. All right, so factors of -32. Well, factors of 32 are 1 and 32, 2 and 16, and 4 and 8. All right, so now I got to find which combination gets me to a positive 14. Well, 4, nope. Okay, here we go. Right, the 2 and the 16. All right, except one of these need to be negative and one needs to be positive, because when I multiply, I got to get back to a negative number here, right? And I want to add to a positive 14. That means my bigger number is going to have to be that positive, and my smaller number is going to be the negative, right? Because a -2 plus 16 is a positive 14. And that is what I want to get to because of this positive 14x. All right, so that means my solution is x minus 2 times x plus 16. Awesome, we got our last one here. We got x squared minus 3x minus 28. Okay, so I got to find factors of -28 that add to a -3. All right, well, my factors of -28 are 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 3 does not go into it, and 4 and 7. All right, again, so factors of -28, that means these two numbers have to multiply to a negative. That means I'm going to have one of each sign, right? And I got to get to a -3. Well, these first two numbers, there's no way I can get to a -3, right? So I'm looking at my last pair here with my 4 and my 7, all right? And if I want them to add to a negative, that means my bigger number has to be the negative, and my smaller number has to be the positive. So now my solution is going to be x plus 4 times x minus 7. All right, and that's how we factor trinomials, right, when all the signs are not positive. All right, so now it's time to do some practice. So work on skills practice 7.5.